And me, you get me again. I feel like I should call you by a wrong name since that's been my pattern when I've been, yes, that's my MO now that I'm up here. Heather and I are getting to do a together talk, a table talk, whatever we want to call it. And we're going to actually, we both are passionate about mental health, emotional health. And we know that you guys as leaders, whether you are leading an entire church, if you're leading a small group, if you're leading in the classroom, there are mental health challenges that you deal with on a daily basis. So we really wanted to spend some time talking about how to show up for people who are struggling mentally. So every one of us has mental health, just like every one of us has physical health. Yet despite the prevalence of mental health that is being talked about today, there's still a ton of stigma attached to it. So mental health is something that needs to be talked about more. It's something we still don't know necessarily how to respond to. We don't know how to show up for those who are struggling. We aren't therapists. We are just people who have experienced life. And we are going to kind of take what we have walked through ourselves and been given the opportunity to walk others through. And we're going to show you what has encouraged and empowered us. So we all have different experiences in regards to mental health. What's the best way we can seek to understand someone's struggle? So we're going to do it in a pretty simple way. We're going to talk about the do's and the don'ts. When it comes to dealing with people who are mentally struggling, we're going to go through a list of do's, and then we're going to go through a list of don'ts. So let's just dive in, and you can get us started, Heather. Anything you want to say to introduce yourself?
No. It's just that teleprompter's really far away. Can anybody do LASIK surgery really quick? All right.
They actually made it a bit larger than it was a while ago. At first, I was like,
yeah, it's not because I'm aging. Okay, no,
look,
please stand by.
Now there's no teleprompter. Thanks for calling out the teleprompter person. This is going to play into my abandonment issues.
I'm sorry. Look, it says, please stand by. That's because I just insulted them?
Yeah, you did. Oh. They're now struggling with their mental health because you insulted them.
Stop by the Wondherful table and get a life box.
And a free t-shirt.
All right, I see it.
It's back. Thank you, Shelby.
Do recognize that all mental health struggles, someone's standing in front of the teleprompter. Okay. Do recognize that all mental health struggles are not the same. So, and I actually, when I communicate about it, Brandi, I don't use the word mental health. I use mental affliction because grief is not a mental health diagnosis, but it is something that afflicts the mind. So I usually, frame it as mental afflictions. And they're not all the same. And the only reason they're not all the same is because none of us are all the same. So how you process depression is going to be very different than how I do, because you're you and I'm me. But Jesus is the common denominator in all of us. And he sits on the throne in all of our heavens, and he sits on the front door of our souls and at the forefront of our minds. And you didn't get any less of him than I did, and I didn't get any more of him than you did. So that's the thing that does make it common.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great word of using mental affliction. I love the thought process behind that. That's awesome. I think another do is normalize talking about it. I think, it's one of those subjects that we kind of want to just skirt around because it feels hard and it's vulnerable. But it's something that we need to make sure we're dealing with. This summer, when I was at my lowest, the fact that Lori would, call me regularly and about once a week say, tell me how you're doing. I knew she meant more than just my to-do list at work. I knew she meant more than just like what was going on in my home life. I knew she was asking how I was doing emotionally. And that gave me the freedom to feel like I could bring it up. Not that I didn't feel like but you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to feel, I feel like I'm a downer when I'm saying like, I'm still struggling and I can't get over it. she going to say, how are you doing? And I'm going to say, shockingly well. That hadn't happened. So the fact that I felt like I could bring it up and show up with how I was feeling was because she was willing to ask about it. So definitely normalize talking about it in a way that feels comfortable for both of you.
Am I the next two?
Yeah, would you like me to read it to you, though?
No.
Okay.
I could do it, Brandi.
Not because you can't read, because of the distance.
No, I can read it.
Okay.
But I'll just add one more thing to what you said.
Add as much as
if
you
that's
want.
okay. Is do ask someone, are you thinking about killing yourself? There is a huge misnomer out there that if I ask that, it will make them want to do it more. And research, and I personally will tell you that is categorically false. When my husband or Pastor David or Lisa have looked at me in my face and said, Heather, are you thinking about killing yourself? Do you have a plan to kill yourself? That makes me want to live more because they loved me enough to ask.
That's great.
So please, if you suspect that behavior in somebody, don't get all pithy and theological and use big Jesus words. Just straight up, I'm worried about you, I love you, are you thinking about killing yourself? Is that okay that I said that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, do listen and validate, be curious, support looks different for everyone. So what one person needs when struggling.
So I'm gonna pause here for a minute because the way a teleprompter works is it actually feeds you information and you make it feel natural.
Can we start over?
And I didn't write complete sentences when I was putting our notes together. I wrote fragments.
Okay.
Let's talk about being curious. When we're talking, let's do it this way.
Can you? Okay.
Let's talk about being curious. When we are talking about what people need who are mentally struggling, when we say be curious, what does that mean? You went directly to one question that is super important for you to hear and that you ask other people. Mm-hmm. Not everyone, when we talk about mental affliction, not everyone is to the point of suicide.
No, that was a caveat.
Right, for sure. So when we're talking about someone who's just struggling with depression like me, high anxiety, maybe grief like you mentioned before, and we say be curious about that person, tell me what that means. Tell me what are some really practical, helpful ways we can be curious that makes them feel seen.
Well, I take my cues from Jesus when it comes to ministering to somebody that's mentally afflicted. And when you study the text, you'll see a lot of times that Jesus touched. Now that's ironic because I hate people touching me, but I've had to surrender that hate and let the Holy Spirit do what he needs to do through me when someone's hurting. And I want to give it to you in 3 practical ways. There's 3 ways that you help somebody when it is beyond what words can say. So I need 3 volunteers. You 3 right here. Will you come up here? Right here. These 3. These girls, they didn't know I was going to do this, but I just need you to come up here. Sorry, momentary pause. This is a time
you
where
are way better at this than reading the teleprompter. So yes, just do this.
Well, I'm not very good at that. So I studied John chapter 20, where Mary goes to the tomb and she's mentally afflicted. She's in so much pain because her friend has died. And as I studied Jesus, I found 3 practical ways when words don't work. And I want to show those to you guys, okay? Hug, sit, hold. When you don't know what to say to that person, hug them. All right. When you don't know what to say to that person, sit with them. And I took this from Job. Nobody's had a life as bad as Job. Some of you guys have horrible situations right now, but it's not as bad as Job. And Job said that his friends sat with him because his pain was too much for words. I went into a parking lot at my beauty salon because the stylist had found out her dad had taken his life. And she was sitting in the parking lot by herself. And they had me go out there and sit with her. She wasn't a Christian. I didn't know her, so I sat with her. She cried, I sat. Thank you. Thanks. And then the last one, hold. Hold their hair if they're crying and it's getting in the way. Hold their tears if they're crying and they're dropping out really fast. Hold their hand. Hold their child. Hold does a lot. When my brother Chris died, there was a recession line afterwards, whatever that line's called. And my husband's mother, when she came up to me, it was her turn in line, she held my face. And that was enough. Thanks, guys. Give them a hand.
That's really beautiful. I love that visual. That is something everyone seated in here can do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's move to some of the don'ts. When we're talking about people who are mentally struggling, let's talk about what are some of the things we don't need to do. I think one thing that maybe I have been guilty of unintentionally is saying, well, I know so-and-so, and she also had depression, and I compare the journey of one person who had a mental affliction to the journey of another person. Tell me how we can how to not make that comparison in a way that is maybe degrading or belittling of their experience.
I think the best way is that when we're ministering to these people that are mentally afflicted, stop talking. You're there to listen. And the more we talk, the more we say dumb things. Like, oh, yeah, but you don't have it as bad as my Aunt Hilda. Hello? Listen, people's agony can run extremely deep into their souls. And you have no way of getting to it with your words. So just don't talk as much. Pray. If you think you don't know what to say, let God say it. Just say, can we just pray right now? Trust me, he'll show up and he'll give you the words so that you don't say something dumb. Trust me, I do it. I've done this. I'm a student, graduated, was saying dumb things in mentally afflicted, anguishing moments.
Tell me about, because I do think when we show up, we have to be aware that we are showing up to hold space for that person and not take what is going on personally, because their response to us might not be warm and friendly and kind, because they aren't capable of giving that. So how can we make sure that we're not taking their response to our presence personally?
Yeah. Back to Jesus, it's so funny because Mary in John chapter 20, she was like, well, what'd you do with him? Gardener, where'd you take Jesus? And she starts going bananas. They didn't have Zoloft back then. So. That changes everything. But she's going bananas, and accusing him of taking her friend Jesus and just kind of saying things that, and he could have been like, hello, whoa, okay, take a chill pill. Chillax. Yeah, don't say that. Just have mercy on these people. Have mercy. And if you're not a merciful person, God says you don't have because you don't ask in James chapter 4. So if you're ministering to people and you don't have mercy, you get offended when they vent to you, or they're constantly crying, or they can't get better. Well, the onus is on you and me, because he's called us into this leadership position to minister to the brokenhearted. And if we don't have mercy, that's our problem. So pray for mercy.
Heather, yes, I agree. You always give, and I know your journey has not been easy, but I'm so grateful that you have chosen to take your experience to educate us all on how to be able to help more people who are mentally afflicted in our lives. So thank you so much for always chasing after your own mental health. I know it is a job, and I understand that because it's a job for me as well. But I so have respect for the way that you handle yourself and you fight for that. So thank you for educating all of us. Thank you.